So tell us about your childhood, Jose. What led you, I guess, to the path of black rock and beating old heads like Jared?
I have a half-sister. We didn't grow up together. She actually lives in my building now. Father's building lives in the top floor, partner. Cousin lives in the middle. She lives in the ground floor. My parents had a house in the Bronx, but I went to elementary school in Harlem. A lot of cousins. Growing up, I had two things in the house that really influenced me. I was a latchkey kid, had spent a lot of time alone in the house. My parents had an incredible record collection of jazz, deep, straight-ahead jazz, and, oddly enough, a lot of black rock and roll musicians from the 50s. That was my mother's, all the 45. So I just played that stuff. And that really, I think, opened my mind to possibilities of what rock was, because
Yes.
all that came out of this.
Yes.
And then hearing that and understanding it, internalizing it, from the Ray Charles through all the rock and roll in the 50s, and all that musicianship, and all that proto-rock, and all that intersection of blues and fast beat music, and the very early guitar work, and all the musicians that were in the Miles vein, and Art Blakey's and all of those became like my music education. And then my parents subscribed to the Smithsonian and National Geographic, and I was only really allowed to watch documentaries. So after a while of reading those magazines, I said, I see how they photograph these people. I can do this. I want to be able to do
There you
that.
go.
And my first attempts at it were terrible. And then I went to Maryland Institute, College of Art, and this photographers there who trained me, who gave me my first show, who taught me how to see and think when I saw, and how to make what I had in my mind come out of the camera and onto the photograph. Close, my extended family. So we always had big dinners, big family. My parents' generation at the same dinner table, and my grandmother would cook.
That is so.
A small family dinner was 20 or 25 people. We would have 30 or 40 people, 2 or 3 tables, and it was just noise. That was the joy of being in a black family, mostly middle class. And, you know, my day job is in computers, but my passion was always for photographing and documentaries. We made little films in high school with science fiction films, and learned some animation when I was a kid, stop motion animation, some others. When I first got a still camera in my hand and started making photographs and realizing that I could really see, and when I wanted to see and I had a passion for it, hunger, I photographed everything I could. Mostly people. I don't like photographing things. I like photographing people. I'm very, very shy. But when I have a camera in my hand, I can talk to people and get them to open up and form a dialogue.
What have been like some of your favorite projects?
LA riots. I've known that area because I've been photographing straight ahead jazz for a long time, the South Central area. So when the riots were happening, I could walk up and down the streets and everybody knew me. I wasn't scared. And I could walk into buildings with the cops, with the firefighters behind them, and was never worried about it. So that was a good project. The straight ahead jazz stuff in that period. And then the black rock, photographing that and then switching to video, which was new for me. I've always been interested in what is the creative process and where does it come from? And I never get to the answer. I get pieces of it, but it's good to hear people talk about the process and where they came from and who they are. But I have no idea where it comes from, but it is amazing. And then the work I did with Black Girls Burlesque and all those permutations and photographing and videoing that. And it's always around black people and people of color. The musicians that I love, I have a particular fondness for Tamar Kali. She's just one of the best I've ever heard. What got me on this was I went to SOBs one night. Alexis's band got caught in the subway and just couldn't show up. So it was only her and her guitarist on stage at SOBs. And the music that she sang was so amazing, I cried. I was just, tears would just stream down my face. And I said, I have to photograph and follow this and document this because there's something happening in New York right now. Almost 20 years ago, they did a San Sebastian Jazz Festival, and they were the headliners. And I flew there and followed them around for 8 days at all the venues that they played and photographed them and took a little bit of video. And from there, I took a side trip to Morocco, which is also mind-blowing. I had a writing partner for years, Valerie Gladstone, who passed away about 5 years ago. And she and I used to travel to Europe. She would write, I would photograph the destinations, and we would also photograph them, and she would write about dance. And she really introduced me to hardcore, the dance scene. And I know Danny G, who curates the Summerfest, the biggest dance festival in the world.
You know she's at the Choice now.
Really?
She started there recently.
That's right. I did know that. So she is a black rocker. She used to be the principal dancer at Ivey. And I saw her dance when I was in LA a couple of times. And she was incredible. She had injury. She moved into singing.
And Sugar Bush was
Sugar Bush. And then she went back to her dance roots and curated the Summer Stage Dance Festival, she took it to a whole nother level. She brought in an incredible variety of choreography from around the world. So Valerie and I photographed travel and dance, and then we did a book together, A Young Alley Dancer, where she wrote the words and I photographed Iman, who was a dancer at a student at Ivey, and photographed her journey for a year as an Ivey student. And that became a book. Some of the projects I'm most proud of.
How did you become a black rocker, and when did you first really get into music?
Rapper's Delight, the Sugar Hill Gang. And I was blown away. I was like, ha!
What the hell is this?
I don't know what it is or who they're from, but this is fantastic. And I think the thing about it, in particular, was that there was nothing else like it being played on the radio. And that's the stuff that I always gravitated toward. My father bought me a little electric piano. I guess they thought I had some sort of talent for it, so it came with some music books, and I was learning how to play that. And one night I was cleaning. I must have been 6 years old. And I was cleaning it with a damp, wet rag, and no one told me right. 1975, 76, and tubes were still a thing. And so the water got in there and went psst, and that was the end of that. It brought fire into me. When I first heard Prince on the radio and then saw him on Don Kirshner's rock concert. So the visual of it was just like, fuck is this? This is the same guy? Never into Miles Davis. That's again the whole thing with father and jazz until whatever, stuff like that. I did hear Bitches Brew, not realizing it was Miles Davis. And ironically, I wasn't that into it. I was a little kid still, right? But I knew how different it was from anything else. I can't tell you, in the mishmash of all of that stuff, what pulled me toward sounds that are measured as more aggressive, right? Because rock is a hard thing for me to quantify, to be honest with you. And to a certain degree in my mind, I don't make rock. I don't make R&B. I can't say that what I make is jazz, even though some people have, but I wouldn't call it that. There is definitely an element of blues in it, but it's not traditional form. It's blues in concept more than it is, and even though there's definitely some 12 bars in there in some places here and there.
Yeah.
That's Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy.
Okay.
Even though Shrine has its, blues parts too, to a small degree. But I think those are more blues like the Doors blues than it is in Hopkins.
Tell us about your two bands.
One of them is, for lack of a better term, a project. However, where a project might imply a bunch of other people, it could be people,
I hear you.
but there's not really people. But sometimes there's people. And that's Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy. Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy, it's nothing. It's literally nothing. It's 4 words that sound like something really nasty to describe something that's a little scary because there's really nothing to it. And it's not specific to a sound or a genre or a group of people. It's literally, more than anything else, both a moment in time and a moment in concept. That concept is extremely political. Sometimes it's extremely rude. Sometimes it's extremely angry. Sometimes it's extremely nowhere near politically correct. And it's not always about the sound of it. Sometimes it's about the image of it and the images that are used around it. And it's really all meant to promote a commoditized intangible that is literally meant to get your attention and transfer your money and your resources from you to me. That's what the Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy is. That's exactly what it is. And it's not meant for anybody to be able to understand it, even though I'm doing everything I can to bait you into wanting to understand it. And I've been somewhat successful at that. I hate to have to put it in these terms. I'd rather be able to associate it with something more Native American or African, but I can't. And I don't know if that's a byproduct of being born of this skin in this country, or the fact that I just can't think of anybody else except this particular reference. And the Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy is very much an Andy Kaufman-esque music thing. This Ponzi scheme, because that's what the fuck it was. And I went and caught with a boy of mine who, again, things that don't cross, right? Another homeboy of mine who loved punk, loved hardcore and stuff like that, but he was not a musician. He had no interest in playing music and stuff like that. And I was like, yo, I need you to play bass for this. He was like, fuck, man, I don't play. I said, listen, just shut the fuck up. Take this instrument. I'm gonna show you what to do. That's all you have to do. So I literally gave this dude a bass lesson. I did not know how to play bass. I had never played bass in my life. I had played guitar, I played other things, but conceptually, I was like, listen, I know this is a horrible story, but it's so the truth. I said, listen, just pick it up, take these fingers, slide your hand. Don't worry about playing right or playing well or playing good. I don't want you to think about that. I just want you literally to be a Negro holding a bass, making a noise. Can you do that? He said yes. He was obviously full of shit. He couldn't even fucking follow instructions. I wish I was joking. I was saying, I know you can kill you, but I swear this is the God's honest truth, all this. We could not find somebody to play drums, and we did not have a drum set. So there was this biker white boy that didn't go to our school, but was a friend of ours, good friend of ours, cool dude. We're hanging out one day, and we're telling him the story of our issue and this thing that we gotta do. And in a drunken belch, she straight said, buy me a fucking bottle of Jack Daniels, I'll fucking do it. We said, bet, but you got a drum set? I'll figure it out. Fast forward to maybe like a week before this thing's supposed to happen. And the bass player is freaking out, and he doesn't want to do it because all of a sudden, I don't know whether he's gotten morality or he's gotten some sense of self-respect. I don't know what the hell his problem is. But all of a sudden now he's like, I don't think I want to do it. What do you mean you don't want to do it? I've shown you how to do this and I've told you what I need you to do. But I don't know any of this stuff. It's like, dude, you don't have to know anything. All we want to do is give these people a literal show so we can get this money. We are college students. We try to tell them that we don't have a band, they do not want to listen, so we're going to give them something, right? We're a noise band, literally. That's what we told her, that's what we're going to be. We're going to just play noise. But don't you have to? Oh my God, dude, we can work this out. We can take over the whole world together. We don't have to, don't worry about these rules and these people. He ended up flaking the fuck out. Turns out the white boy didn't have a drum set, but he was more than willing to go get a garbage can lid off one of the garbage cans outside in front of the school and beat on that. We were kind of stuck. And we had already spent money that we didn't have to go get his quart of Jack Daniels. So we were like, fuck it. All right. It was me on guitar. It turned out a boy of mine who didn't go to the school but was hanging out with us at the school. He was there all the time. Now, he was a musician. He was an amazing musician. He had always been an amazing pianist and keyboardist. He decided that he would pick up the bass and play it. Fantastic. What are we playing? I don't know. Play anything. It doesn't make a difference because I'm going to go up there with the guitar and I'm going to make all this fucking noise and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing and I'm going to jump around like a motherfucking fool. That's what's going to happen. And our singer didn't show up at the beginning of the show. Everybody's like, where's the singer? We don't fucking know. Fuck it. But we got to do this because we've told these people to have all this stuff and have our money. And don't you know, the day of we show up and they got a full spread of food and people have shown up and the whole shit. And I go to the school. I have to come back. And there's only like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of us black dudes in this school all together. Of all these young women, most of them not from New York, and we're these New York dudes, and just like, we'll throw your black asses out, and maybe even throw you the police for fraud, goddammit. So we're gonna go up there and do our dance. So we go up there, we start making all this noise. Out of nowhere, the singer comes, Steve. And he does it in old school New York City CBGB's punk rock fashion. He literally came out of nowhere with a backpack on his back, straight from the street. He walks right up, grabs the mic, and just starts complete. And it's all made up, all of it. We didn't have any songs. We hadn't practiced anything. We went up there and we acted a straight motherfucking fool. And if you could call it improv, it was the worst, most disgusting, rancid sounding stuff. 4 people, one of them banging a garbage can lid, who didn't know what the fuck they were doing, who were not playing together, who had no understanding of the thing in their hand, let alone chords and scales and melody, all that, or even rhythm. None of it. And we did that shit literally nonstop, like one long song for maybe 27, 30 minutes. And then we walked off stage, right up to that poor little white girl. That's our food. We got our cash. And she looked so angry, so pissed. Oh, she was only $1.05 in the whole shit, but if she could have took us and threw us up against the wall and beat us bloody, she would have. And don't you know, one of her friends in the club walked up as she was sitting there, and I know that she was turning her mouth to say, "You fucking dick." And the lady walked up behind her and said, "You guys were incredible. Oh my God. That's like, what's the name of your band? What is it? When are you playing again?" And we looked at each other. Frozen concentrated orange juice. That's the name of the band, FCOJ. And that was literally it. And we got our money. She didn't say anything. She looked at her friend. She looked at us, and we looked serious. So she had to change her mode that maybe this is some New York art shit. And we got the fuck out of there with our lives and our freedom and a little bit of equipment. We got homeboy good and drunk. He got his bottle of Jack Daniels and the whole deal. Me and Steve turned that into a real band called Gamma Phi Acme, where we wrote some real songs and would tear shit up at CBGB's, and Fab Five Freddy from MTV Raps was coming to our shows. You couldn't call Steve a singer. You really couldn't call him an MC either, but you couldn't say that he wasn't rhyming, the word that we used to all avoid back in the day, calling things rap. Put some music out for a few years, went to the studio a couple of times. People dug it, and because we didn't have a team or a system behind us or anything like that. Out of necessity, I started booking and promoting and producing shows and booking other bands for us to play with. I ended up literally being the songwriter and the producer of the band and all these live shows.
Yeah.
It wasn't a plan originally or an expectation for it to become a thing that actually was paying bills and feeding stuff like that. I mean, it was preferable. You know, I was in school for political science on my way to getting a law degree, even though I was in a school that was known for theater, and I had spent my life in theater and music. I spent my life in theater and music, didn't know what the hell I was doing at this gig playing this instrument. Right. For the most part, I was acting and singing, right? So if I had gone up there and sung, and I could sing Handel's Messiah and all this classical stuff, I would have done fantastically. It would have been a real thing. But that's not what this girl asked for, and that's not what we were doing. That doesn't mention how I got into rock to a certain degree. But I will say this, for some strange reason, when I was a little kid, Kiss did some sort of special on NBC. And for some reason, I really liked that shit. I don't know what it was that I liked about it. Probably because it was original, or at least in the world that I was in. It was definitely as much their costumes as it was their music. And that was the time when a lot of rock bands were trying to find their inroads into disco. The thing that was significant musically was the fact that this stuff had a particular rhythm that you could dance to, because rock music was always supposed to be a dance music. Now, how you dance to it or what you dance to, what the rhythm is always subjective, right?
Yeah.
That's also why I always shied away from the term rock music. Now, I've always been deeply attached and influenced by New York City hardcore.
Right on.
Because it's funky as fuck. And to me, it's not performative. It's performance, but it's not performative.
Agreed.
And also be very much a storyteller genre, like hip hop, like jazz and blues.
Yeah.
And the stories are often personal. They're not usually third-party stories, even though I think third-party stories are great, but I think very few people do them very well. Neil Young does that extremely well. There's some blues and soul singers that do that kind of stuff extremely well, but it's something that I think we as a culture have really gotten away from. You know, everything is only about us, and then those aren't even really good fucking stories. And then the ones that do write those kind of stories don't get any light, and unfortunately, they don't usually have the space to really focus on their songwriting craft or their musicianship. They don't have the time, so let me make sure I put it in a form that everyone recognizes, that they can attach itself to, that can easily be attached to a movie or a piece of social media so that people will like it, and that I can bring some wonderful effervescence to people. I think it's a little bit better to create things that can also feel like they stand apart. Now, whether somebody thinks that is good or bad or great or shit is not too important. It is, but it's not too important, right? We have an artist here that we've signed, this young lady, and while we're working, we talk a lot about music history, music theory, and its creation and conception as a piece of art that attracts other people, right? And one of the things that we talk about is having and understanding the work of others, regardless of whether you think it's good or not, whether you like it or not. I keep copies of some music that I hate. I think it's some of the worst produced or written stuff ever, but I don't get rid of it. I keep it because it has value in regards of what you might want to avoid. It gives you a sense of the multitude of different ways and directions that any art can go into.
Yes.
And you may not necessarily find something you like, but you might find something useful. And that's what this entire existence is really about, you know, finding both the beauty and the sublime, the gory and the great, and being able to put it to use for whatever endeavor you're doing in any appropriate moment.
Jose was telling us a lot about the intersections of art and alternative culture in New York City with black people. Like, how do you feel about that, like being there yourself as well?
So I grew up in theater. So all of those horrible tales of black parental and our early artistic musical woe, to a certain degree, lead to me being in theater and spending a lot of time acting and being a young kid doing a bunch of off-Broadway stuff and doing some, I guess, seemingly significant stuff with seemingly significant people at the time. And my parents had a better understanding of that than I did. I was too busy in it and living with it and dealing with it. To a certain degree, I still exist that way. I have a tendency to be involved and sometimes in the middle of these things without necessarily being able to visualize or have a direct sense of the significance of what's happening, or even of the people and what level of significance they may occupy. So it's hard for me to be able to kind of relate specific words to where things cross from one thing into another thing. They obviously do, right? It's just a matter of me being able to recall some of the stories and the interactions of people. I don't have any overt specific experiences that I can speak to where my time in theater had any particular crossover with any of the people that I ended up playing music with or producing shows with or doing sound for or recording or anything like that. I've often lived a lot of different lives in different parts of town. People that I might have been in off-Broadway plays with, to a certain degree, it's a lot of them, but it occupies one particular segment of my life and one group of particular people. It didn't necessarily cross over at all with going to matinees at CBGB's, for example. I wouldn't see those same people there. Dancers that went to the same college that I went to, even though there was a large part of them. So I would have these interactions, but often those interactions would kind of, when I left that place, they would stop right there, and I would go to the next place to do the next thing.
I unplugged from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that. I kind of just stepped back when Obama left and Trump came in. You know, I know
thanks.
Black Rock Coalition, and that's those are my people, but
Right.
No, I respect that.
You know what's interesting and crazy? When Trump got in, I got even further into social media. As a matter of fact, while I've always had the Twitter presence, I've probably spent more time on Twitter now since Elon Musk bought Twitter, because that's where the racists are.
yeah, I can't. It's just too toxic for me.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Hey, you know, get the face. That's, you know, I don't know why I'm like that.
How do we find you, Jose?
You can see a lot of the photographs at urbanvoyeur.com. And you can find the book, A Young Alley Dancer, on Amazon. I promise that I will rebuild the site hopefully for the end of the year.